Hey EA community, I'm Pidgeo, the Regional Community Manager for EA in Asia Pacific, and we're really excited to bring you one of the first of hopefully many producer interviews. And today we're bringing you interviews from the guys behind Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, an open world RPG coming February 9, 2012. We are missing someone, so I wonder when he's going to... Oh, Jesus, here we go.
You guys, where's your costumes, man?
You didn't get the cancellation on the costumes, Jiggsy?
No. So,
Yeah, you look like a goose, but I like it.
Hi, that's nice. Thank you, thank you.
And to introduce to the community, this is NFS Jiggsy, who spends most of his time on NFS, but he's a big fan of all our titles. So he's our APAC community coordinator. How you doing, Jiggsy?
I'm good, man, I'm good. I also spend a lot of my time dressed like this, but that's private.
I heard what's your Friday outfit?
It's a nurse outfit.
That scares me. All right, let's get on to Reckoning with the guys. So we've got a couple of the questions that you guys sent through to us, and we're really appreciative of all the questions, all the way from Johannesburg, Cape Town, throughout Asia, and also here in Australia. So we'll start off with the first one. How does Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning differ from other fantasy RPGs? I know the answer, but I'm not going to answer it because these guys are much more qualified.
I know, like we flew them out here. We may as well get them to answer a few questions.
You want this one or shall I?
I think there are two major areas. First is the combat, definitely. So if you get the opportunity to play the game, you're going to notice right away that in other RPGs prior to this, maybe the combat was a separate experience from how engaged you were in the title. What we really wanted to do was bring that really kinetic action combat into the quests that you were playing, into the world that you were exploring, so that there was never a moment where you weren't immersed in the experience. So I think also in addition to the combat, the destiny system, which is how we deal with classes. We don't make you choose up front what you're going to be, because even something that you think sounds like something that you would want to play could, in the realm of our game, be not something that you want to do. So
it may not meet your expectations.
Yeah.
If you played a rogue in Morrowind and I played a rogue in World of Warcraft, we may have completely different ideas of what a rogue is and what makes a rogue fun. You come into Reckoning, you don't know what that expectation may or may not meet the actual game. So we want to let you experience all the different play styles early in the game. Throw a ball of lightning, swing a sword, use a bow, get a feel for what you like in Reckoning, and then you can start deciding what kind of destinies to unlock, what sort of abilities you want to buy.
Right, and destinies become available as you level. You can put points into any of our 60 skills that are broken up into the might tree. More than 60. Broken up into our might tree, our finesse tree, and our sorcery tree. So as you're putting points in, the game recognizes, oh, you want to be a hybrid between might and sorcery. You want to be like a spell sword or something to that effect. And so it will allow you these destinies that will boost the kind of player that you're trying to be. And you can select that as you play the game, again, rather than choosing it up front.
For that matter, you can change it. You can be 40 hours into the game and say, been pure warrior the whole time, and then suddenly you go, I want to throw fireballs, let's try that out. And you're going to unlock new destinies appropriate to that, and you can kind of switch over to that hybrid play style.
So one of the other big questions that we've gotten as well, I've seen a couple of times pop up, is how big's the game world going to be, and how linear is the sort of storyline to it?
The world is very, very large. I don't know the square footage off the top of my head, but it's broken down into 5 different geographic zones, each of which has their own totally different biome and architecture and style. So you've got, dank swamps, you've got arid deserts, you've got these enchanted forests, this sort of crystalline forestscape in this area called Alabastra, and each of them is huge. Like, to give an example, the early game, the first sort of zone you get into is called Dalentarth. That zone itself is broken up into another 8 or so subzones. One of them, you can stand in the middle of it and not see the edges from the middle of it. And it's just one example of 1/8 of 1/5 of the total world. Like, it's just very, very large. As far as the second part, the linearity of the quests and the story, there's a lot of different quests. So you've got the main quest, is kind of the story beginning with you being brought back from the dead and then figuring out who killed you and why you got brought back and kind of unraveling that whole mystery. So that part is fairly linear. Outside of that, we have a whole crazy spaghetti mess of other factions you can join, 6 different factions you can join, in fact, with stories of their own, and hundreds of side quests that stand on their own. And all of these kind of stories, some of them are linear, some of them aren't, but they all sort of overlap, so at any given point in the game, you've got tons of different options of things to do and ways to do them.
Excellent. Now, you mentioned the factions as well. Are you able to join more than one faction at a time?
Yeah, actually.
Excellent.
So what we do, so some games have factions that are exclusive. You join this one, it pisses these guys off, so you can't do that. And some games you can do them all. We liked the aspect of the exclusivity, but we wanted to let you try all the factions. So what we did is you can join all 6 factions, and they don't like fictionally hate each other or something, so it makes sense that you can do that. but there's exclusive stuff within the factions. Because our character is the fateless one, the person who is without a destiny and therefore can change the fates of those around him or her, you can actually change the fates of the factions. You can give them sort of different endings depending on how you choose to play out their quests. So that's where the exclusivity comes into it for us.
Excellent.
I like reading. Nah, just being silly. Now, one we have got a lot as well, and it's a good question that we'd like to know, is also, which is your favourite Destiny to play and why? Very open-ended question considering how deep the game is, but...
We have different favorites, so this works out.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely a Shadowcaster. I like the idea of playing a rogue, but I also like the idea of using Blink as a dodge instead of rolling.
Like a teleport.
Yeah, I like to be able to teleport through things. And when you combine the rogue and the mage into the Shadowcaster, your Blink also brings poison with it. So then you're not only surrounded by guys and getting out of that by teleporting through people, but you're leaving this poisonous cloud in your wake and poisoning everybody. So it's definitely the way that I'm using bow and chakram as the two weapons on my playthrough, and I'm loving that.
Yeah, for me, it's Battle Mage. It's sort of the might and sorcery hybrid. So you've got a lot of the magical defenses and a lot of the kind of just like raw, you're wearing plate mail, you got your heavy shield. It's sort of a paladin-esque build. So you're very defensive. At the same time, you have this mastery over both healing and elemental magic. So you get to use my two favorite weapons, the longsword, which is just your basic sword, but it's extremely versatile, and the chakrams, which are a unique weapon to Reckoning. They're kind of, think Xena, bladed discs that you throw around. They're enchanted with either fire, ice, or lightning. You throw them in these crazy wide loops, and you can launch guys in the air with them. They're just this very dynamic weapon. So being a battle mage, you're good at both kind of the traditional melee weapons and these kind of crazy chakrams. So for me, that's it.
Love it. Another one we get asked a lot is companions. Can you recruit them along the way? How does the companion system work?
So we don't do like BioWare style full-time companions where you get, Bob with you and he's with you for the whole game. We do companions and followers in a more limited context. Like on this quest, Agarth is with you and he will be with you for this whole quest. Or you can summon a minion out with one of the abilities in the sorcery tree and they're with you whenever you summon them. They're there, they follow you around and so forth. But it's always in some specific context, like when they have a reason to be along with you or because you summon them to do so.
Following on to the Destinies question, there was we've seen that Destinies aren't set in stone throughout the game, but are you able to combine different elements to have your own unique Destiny? And if so, have you guys done that in your own playthroughs?
So there's actually two kind of separate answers to that question. So yes is the short version. First of all, regardless of what Destiny you use, there's so many different abilities, as Sean mentioned earlier, in those ability trees, that your battle mage and my battle mage may not necessarily be the same. Because I bought points in this, and I focused on this, and you focused on that, and our gear's a little bit different. We can have several different versions of a battle mage. So there's that. Separately, there's what we call Twists of Fate. So the Destiny cards are presented to the player like tarot cards. Cool little illustrated thing. There's another thing called Twists of Fate that are also presented as cards, and they're not earned based on what points you invested in. They're earned based on your quest decisions. So like I mentioned earlier, the factions having that exclusive content where you choose this or that, that's where the Twists of Fate come in. I chose to make the Warsworn faction end up this way instead of ending up that way. Because I changed fate in that permanent manner, I unlock a Twist of Fate, which gives me permanent bonuses and sort of modifies whatever destinies I've chosen to use.
One of the other questions that we've had regarding combat is you've got the ability wheel on the side there. Are you able to switch that to a different set of 4 sort of options during the game?
So it depends on your platform. If you're playing on the Xbox 360 or the PlayStation 3, no, it is just 4 at a time. That said, the sustained abilities, like Envenomed Edge, is something that says, poison my weapons. As long as this is turned on, I want my weapons poisoned. You can turn that on and then unmap it and put something else in the slot, and it'll stay on. So any sort of passive thing like that, you don't have to worry about keeping a slot reserved for it. On the PC, you have a totally different UI and a suite of, all 10 buttons. So there you actually have more than 4 at a time.
Right, mapped to your number keys across the top of the keyboard.
Exactly. Although it's worth mentioning on the PC, you can also play that with a controller if you prefer.
Excellent. Now going back to the areas in the world, you mentioned that there's everything from dank swamps to mountaintops and everything like that. Personally, for you guys, which is your favorite area to play in, and why do you find that area to be the most fun?
I actually don't know what your favorite is. I'm gonna hear
Okay,
this.
mine's gonna be Plains of Arethel, and it's gonna sound really sensitive, but just because it's pretty. Yeah, we've got Dalentarth, which is like the Enchanted Forest. We've got Plains of Arethel, which is more like the tall grass and deciduous trees and wide open views. We've got Datir, which is kind of like your Utah, Moab kind of look. We've got Clericon, which is a swamp, kind of dismal. And then we have the blasted crystal lands of Alabastra. So of those, I enjoy playing in the Plains of Arethel just because it feels so open.
I feel terrible now. I actually have the same. I love Arethel, although for me it's because the landscape has a certain landmark. Skycrown Mountain is this giant cloud wreath mountain in the middle of the zone. You can see it from everywhere, and you can actually, I don't want to spoil you too much, but you can actually get to the top of that mountain. It's one of the cooler spots in the zone. I just love that feel that no matter where you go, you can see it, and it's a place you can go and experience.
All right, let's move on to consequences and morality and choice, which is always a wonderful part of RPGs. But that whole morality or choice or consequence system, however you want to call it, how does that implement into the game, and how does that affect the greater storyline as you go along?
So we chose to do morality in a non-systemic fashion. So some RPGs will have, I do this and I earn 5 evil points or 3 good points or whatever, and that's sort of a global thing. We decided not to do that, instead to handle good and evil or just choice period on a per quest basis. So I'm trying to think how to say this without spoiling too much. There are quests in the game in places that I will not specifically list, where you can go, and if you do something dastardly and you get caught doing it, people know that you did it, they may react to you differently. They're not going to react to you because you got 5 evil points for something you did on the other side of the world, but because you did that specific thing in their town, they're going to go, you're a dick, and react according to that.
That'll be my character.
Yeah, but beyond that, do you have anything else on choice?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. There aren't angel points and devil points.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you do stuff like that, you're guessing what it is the designer thought was good or bad in a given situation. And I've done things that I thought were actually kind of merciful that turned out to be the bad thing, and vice versa. So it really is consequential. It's you do this thing, and everyone reacts to the action, not the moral judgment of that action.
And actually, another thing we do there that actually is systemic is the crime system. So this is outside of what's necessarily moral, but there are laws in the world. And if you run up and murder the peasant in the street, the guards oddly aren't comfortable with that, and they will be upset. So if you do crimes like trespassing places you don't belong, stealing, pickpocketing, murder, etc., and you get caught, then in most civilized areas, guards will come after you, and you can try to, pay off the fine. If you can afford to do that, you can go to jail. You can try to just screw you and try to fight your way out of it. And even that jail experience actually varies based on where you're at. Like if you get caught in one of the mortal areas with normal human beings, they're going to throw you in a dungeon, behind cells in a cave, or behind bars rather in a cave. If you get caught in Issa, the city of the immortal Fae, they don't really understand prison. They're immortal. That isn't even a thing they really get. So they throw you in a crazy magic labyrinth full of monsters. They're like, yeah, if you get out, you're probably innocent. It's fine. So yeah, totally different experience depending on where you are.
So it sounds like from that it really gives you much more of a sort of freedom to play, and rather, like you said, than imagining what the developers wanted you to do.
Right.
You literally get to run on instinct and be that character.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm blown away by this game, and I unfortunately haven't played it half as much as I'd like to. Jiggsy got to play it a lot yesterday. I actually had to ask him to drag him back to the office, so it was. But I don't blame him at all. Now, to finish up on the community questions, and this is one that I wanted to ask as well, that Reckoning does seem to combine so many elements of so many fantastic RPGs across the years. There's been so many, and it'll follow on for another question I'll ask. But the first part is, are there any games that you guys have particularly played, and the guys in the studio, that have really influenced, and there's probably a lot, that have influenced the building of Reckoning?
There have been a ton, whether it's the art or the design, there's different things influencing all of us across the team. We've got, 100 odd people, so it's tremendous amount of influences coming through a lot of people into the final product that you see. I think for me, coming from the design perspective, the Ultima series has been a huge influence. Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, especially 2, have been a big influencing factor. And not so much the newest Deus Ex, because we were already mostly done with the game by the time it came out, but the original Deus Ex, actually, in terms of handling choice and doing advancement systems that have exclusivity, make you choose one thing over another, but where you kind of want everything, also a big influence. Yeah. Sean?
Yep. Well, I think that much to the happiness of designers everywhere, I, as the producer, don't influence the creation of the game. I just care that it gets done on time.
We lock him up most of the time.
I love it. Now, to follow on to that,
unicorns.
my first RPG was, we were talking about it before, was Bard's Tale 2, The Destiny Knight on the Apple IIe. I don't know what yours was, Jiggsy.
I think, to be honest, there was a lot of pen and paper RPG stuff before I got into the actual gaming side of it. But as shameful as it is, the first one that I sat down and actually played through from start to finish myself would have been Oblivion when it came out. So,
not a bad game to actually start on.
Not a bad one to get into that kind of genre.
But just interested to hear from you guys. What was your first RPG? What got you into wanting to be into this sort of world or worlds that we get to play in?
Wow, Does Choose Your Own Adventure #1, The Abominable Snowman,
Nice.
count?
I think it counts.
as
The
an
lost
RPG?
one was the Cave of Time.
Oh, was it?
#1 was Cave of Time.
Oh, man, I thought it was The Abominable Snowman. I just checked it out from the library. I've been lied to. No, I would have to say Zork.
Really?
Yeah, the Text
Wow.
Adventure Zork is my first on my Commodore 64.
I actually remember
old.
getting a book
I am
of
so
Zork.
old. I'm an old man.
I remember getting the book for Zork, not the cartridge or the
Right, the, like
set
the
at
Choose
that
Your Own
stage.
Adventure.
No, like the actual programming book for the Commodore
Oh.
64.
Oh, wow.
It was 1,500 pages long, and it said, right, start at line 1 and go
Right,
all the way to
and
the end.
go
and-
to, yeah.
Yeah, and that took me probably about 3 weeks without turning a Commodore 64 off.
But was it worth
And achieved a girlfriend.
Well, it was definitely a companion of sorts for many, many lonely nights. But no, I do remember Zork, and it was a hell of a game for
Yeah.
its time.
That's awesome. For me, it was actually Gold Box Pool of Radiance.
Oh, we were talking
Yeah.
about this in the office
Yeah.
the other day. I've actually got them all, and I've got to bring him in for Jiggsy to play.
Yeah.
That's a
Got, like,
fantastic
the Azure
shot.
Bonds and all
Azure
that.
Bonds,
Yeah.
Secret of Silver Blades. I was more of a Dragonlance fan, so I played the Champions, Death Knights, and Dark Queen of Kryn. But yeah, I love that shot.
We are a gaggle of nerds.
Yeah, that's why we're in this industry. That's why we do it.
And in
Why
these
we don't all-
ridiculous costumes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all of our costumes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the costumes that
Just
everyone's
normal
wearing.
Reckoning shirts that we should wear, but.
That's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. But just to finish up on, getting to work with what I like to call the holy trinity of doom when it comes to Mr. Ken Rolston, obviously the man behind Morrowind and Oblivion, one you started on. Both games that I've played a lot of and loved. Then you've got obviously Todd McFarlane with that's more of a
Yeah,
hero
definitely
for
one
yours
of
from-
my kind of heroes with his creepy, twisted, brilliant art.
And obviously, we've also said the RPG elements, especially from the AD&D world. Obviously, R.A. Salvatore being a huge influence with the Forgotten Realms series. What's it like to work with those guys? What's it like to be involved in the development of a game with those three being involved? I mean, we're excited just being at the publisher side, getting to go, hey, we get to work on Reckoning, and when work, it means do publisher events and
talk about
it and stuff. But to actually be day-to-day with that must be pretty exciting.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, Ken is actually located in our office in Baltimore. He's office across the hall from mine, and he has a squirt gun and will occasionally attack me with it. He's just this crazy fun guy who is entertaining to work with, but also he gets what makes open world RPGs work. Like, there's RPGs that have a great story, and there's RPGs that have the great systems and all that. He's like, yeah, that's great, but there's going to be that player that does not give a crap about your story. Like, he doesn't care. Is it well written? No, they don't care. They're going to skip your cutscenes. They're going to ignore your quest. They're going to not pay any attention to anything you say. And a lot of people, it's just true. They will. And he wants to make sure that the game is fun for those people too. That if you just want to wander around and kill bunnies in the wilderness, that it is an entertaining experience. So he's really good about helping us like kind of bear that in mind. And like he'll sit there, and this is a few months back, played the game for dozens of hours without talking to anyone or doing a single quest, just to give us kind of like accurate feedback on what that experience was like, so we could tune and adjust to make that good. The other guys, Bob is amazing because he wrote R.A. Salvatore wrote a 10,000-year story Bible for the game. It's 90-some pages long. That's just like the basics. And it covers hundreds of years leading up to our game and then hundreds of years after our game. The Northern Studio is working on an MMO, which is set 2,000 years later than Reckoning, but in the same universe. And even just working on these two products at the same time, you get all these cool opportunities to sort of connect them. And we have a lot of things where, like, we were talking about Arathel earlier. All across the plains of Arathel, there are these giant standing stones. Now, we didn't build them because we were like, oh, let's make standing stones. They're cool. We built them because I'm not going to go into it, but there were things there in the past, and these are the remnants of those things. And we do that throughout the game. There's never a ruin that's just a ruin. It's a ruin because R.A. said that there was a city here at such and such a time. It got destroyed by these people for this reason. And it gives you that texture and the richness and believable world. And R.A. is just very, very cool about the whole thing. He's flexible and lets us, change stuff around the world where we need to, but he provides us great scaffolding for storytelling. And then Todd is, of course, frigging insane. I don't know if you guys have seen some of the press events. He'll, jump on a table and act out how a troll attacked.
Yeah, I kind of expected that's what you guys would be a bit more like, but
I'm sorry.
I don't think anyone's that crazy, to be honest.
Very jet lagged.
Yeah,
when we get energetic,
just-
Sean will jump on tables.
Right before we end, I'll jump on something.
Can it be Jiggsy?
It can be.
Oh my.
I might spike you with my long taloned gloves of penetration.
Oh dear. Straight of thought, just derailed a little bit. Give him a minute.
Todd, crazy, jumps on
Todd,
stuff.
crazy, jumps on stuff. Thank
Let's
you.
get back to that.
With you. Anyway, yeah. So Todd is involved in really every aspect of the art. We have an art director of the product, Tim Coleman, who's in our studio. But what Todd will do is periodically meet with the art team, either part of it or as a whole, and just look at everything they're doing, whether it's concept art or environment art, like a building they've created, or a tree or a rock, to in moment-to-moment animations for combat, and he'll give feedback about those things and say like, well, that this works, it's okay, but okay is not good enough. How can we make this better? And he's got a lot of experience, especially in the world of animation. People tend to think of him as, as first and foremost an illustrator, and certainly he's a great illustrator. But he also has a tremendous amount of was it an Emmy Award that he won for this? Yeah, Emmy Award-winning animation experience. So he has given a tremendous amount of feedback to the combat team, the animation team, on how to strengthen up the poses, how to have these strong moments, these weighty pauses and delays, as the guy's working through the air to drop the hammer, to give you that sense of power to the combat. So depending on which area of art it is, he gives different kinds of feedback, but across the board, his goal is to make it more insane, to take it above and beyond good and into, oh wow, I haven't seen anything like that.
Well, from everything that I've seen so far, it definitely has that effect. I don't think I've seen anything that's so full of life and so beautiful, but so slightly twisted at the same time. As Sean, yeah. And the game world as well.
The game's there too, yeah.
No, fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for flying all this way out to talk to us about reckoning. We had no problems at all. We've been really excited to get to talk to you guys about the game, actually get to play the game. Please leave the code for us to play for the next 2 months. Thanks.
We may or may not. Tim Tams.
We can do Tim Tams.
We can do
and
this.
Vegemite. Have you guys tried Vegemite yet?
Vegemite, but the Tim Tams.
You're not missing out on much. It's just like salty tar.
We can
opinion.
do the Tim Tams for code. We can do that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair trade.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But no, thank you so much for coming out here. And for everyone, Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning comes out on PC, PS3 and Xbox 360 February 9th, 2012. And we are absolutely dying for this game to come out. So thanks, guys. And we'll have another producer interview next time they come out. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.